Jays taking on the Atlanta Braves at home, coming off a 3-6 road trip. Not great. Still, the record's pretty good, though. 21-16. I think I've just went through it. I'm pretty sure I'm correct on this. That's good enough to be top 2 in every other division except the AL East. That tells you how strong the AL East is right now.
Same old, right? It could be what year is this?
Yeah,
every year
it just keeps going. I know.
It doesn't matter.
Well, they got a tough test coming up against the Atlanta Braves. They kick off a 10-game homestand. Let's bring in Jordan Horrobin of NorthStar Bets, our Blue Jay guy. Jordan, what? Let me hit you with the fill in the blank. The best word to describe this Jays team as of right now is what?
Wow, that's a good question. I would say unresolved, unrefined. I'm going to say unrefined. We're at a point where we've seen some really, really good stuff out of a few guys near the top of the lineup, and that's been great. Bichette, Guerrero, and Chapman have really been firing on all cylinders. Springer isn't where you'd like him to be, obviously. Manoah isn't where you'd like him to be, obviously. Gosman looks great, but even then there's been some blips. I don't think the rotations played up to maybe expectations from top to bottom. So I'll say unrefined because I think there's more to tap into, more potential for this team than maybe we've seen through the first 36, 37 games here.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, getting into a 10-game homestand, 17 games coming up without an off day. So not an ideal scenario, but coming home is great. Listen, 9-3 at home, the least amount of games played at home. I mean, it's nothing close to what the Rays are doing, 19-3 at home, which is incredible. But this has to be such a great time for them to get home and kind of get settled, right?
Yeah, just packing that Tropicana field. I'm sure the Rays are,
Yeah.
The fans are thrilled there. It's a fantastic time for the Jays to be home. This is such a huge stretch they have coming up here. With these 3 series at home, 2 of them against division opponents. So it'll be a great time for the front office to kind of show off the refurbishments of Rogers Center. We haven't been able to see a lot of that yet because there just haven't been that many home games. But also a great time for the Jays to kind of show who they are and what they are, at this mid-May, May entering June kind of area.
And what they are right now is a pitching staff which is pretty inconsistent. Obviously, the pen's not been doing too well. The starters up and down. I mean, Bassitt, Berrios, and Kikuchi now coming up the next 3 starts. Would you say the back end of the rotation has been better than advertised so far?
I think so. I mean, I think there's a lot of focus on Manoah's struggles, and that sort of overshadows maybe some of the good from Kikuchi that we've seen, maybe some of the less good from Bassitt that we've seen, but I think all 3 of those guys, Berrios, Bassitt, and Kikuchi, not really in that order, they've shown us some good stuff. They've shown us some not so good. And that's kind of what you're going to get out of a 3 through 5 in a rotation. It's not going to be pretty every time. It's not always going to be fun to watch, but you need guys to be able to get you into the 5th inning most nights to try to save the bullpen. And if you can do that and not feel like you're totally out of the game, then more often than not, they've probably done their job.
Jordan, last time we talked about George Springer and his struggles, and they're still continuing to be there. At what point is there really a cause for concern with the Blue Jays outfielder?
Yeah, I mean, we're getting there, I think. And yes, since we last talked, I had a chance to kind of dig in a little bit on what's going on with Springer. And one of the things that I found is he's seeing less fastballs than he's ever seen before on a rate basis, and he's seeing more sliders than ever before. So I think somebody may have figured it out along the way. He loves hitting fastballs, not as big of a fan of sliders. His weighted on base average against sliders this year is 225. That's just kind of a fancy on base percentage, but that's his worst individual weighted on base average against a pitch since 2019. So I think he'll see a lot more of that, and he needs to adjust. I mean, this is a guy that he's been a pro. He's been incredible for his whole career. And I do expect that he will adjust because he has to. We just haven't seen that yet. So I think, I wouldn't put a timeline on it specifically, but I think for Springer, he's earned a very, very long leash because we've seen several seasons of him figuring it out, adjusting to what pitchers are throwing at him, and playing well above a league average.
We're speaking with Jordan Horrobin of NorthStar Bets. Jordan, 3-6 on the road trip, not great. But if I were to pull one of the positives from that road trip, it has to be Daulton Varsho, right? He started off the season not great, wasn't hitting the ball really well. He looked like he was still tweaking his swing a little bit, at least like the leg kick from from what I'm hearing on the broadcast, at least. He had 4 multi-hit games on this road trip. What's he doing now that he wasn't doing before to find the success?
Yeah, he's been really fun to watch recently, and I think at least from what I've been able to see, sort of naked eye watching these games, he's been tightening his swing up a little bit and shortening that. And I don't know if it's a situation where when sometimes things aren't going your way, maybe a hitting coach gets in his ear and asks him to just simplify some things. But I do feel like that there's a little less movement to his hitting approach and his swing, and he's kind of just shortened to the ball and he's crushing it. So I think that's been really good. I mean, you need guys in the bottom half of your lineup to be able to produce and lengthen things and force pitchers to attack you. And he's been a problem for opponents right now.
Jordan, on Wednesday, the biggest glaring mistake was, of course, Bo Bichette's error in the 10th inning. He's noted on occasion to have kind of those mental or defensive lapses, Is there a cause for concern from the Jays and their fan base about these occasional errors?
Yeah, I believe Sportsnet Stats may have put out a tweet that he has now the most errors from shortstop since the time he debuted in July of 2019. So that's not great, but I think, yes, there's a reason to be concerned about that. I mean, I still view Bichette as a really great second baseman and maybe definitely not an ideal shortstop. We can say that. Definitely not an ideal shortstop. But at this point, I don't know who you're going to put there. If you guys have suggestions, feel free to throw them at me. I think this is just where he needs to be right now until they feel like maybe they have someone in the minors who can come up and be that guy, or they were to, maybe trade for someone. Trades are always fun to talk about. But as it stands right now, he is their shortstop. He's hitting so well that no matter where he is, he's a value add on the field. But when you see plays like that, it's definitely frustrating and definitely not something that you would want in the long run.
Yeah, it sucks too, right? Because he hasn't been making these errors this season.
Yeah, but I don't get it. I mean, okay, so great bat, we know that. Not great with the glove at shortstop, but good at second base. Second base is a platoon there right now. I mean, how do you fix this? Is it through trade? When we get to the deadline, do you think there'll be a different setup there in the middle infield?
Well, the thing is, we just had a few really big shortstops hit the free agent market this past year. So the Jays kind of missed the boat there, but I mean, they spent a lot of money. So I don't think we need to wag our finger at them too much there. But there's not, I don't know off the top of my head of like sort of a prime shortstop candidate. Maybe that's something we could talk about next time. But as it stands right now, you can't really move him to second base because I don't think you have a better option internally at shortstop. So you would have to kind of figure out maybe what that looks like. Maybe closer to the trade deadline, they would actually look into this. I'm not sure. But again, trades are always fun to talk about. So something to chew on.
I want to touch on the division quickly. So Major League Baseball implemented a balanced schedule this season, which means the Jays are going to be playing divisional opponents a lot less, I think from 19 to 13, and they'll play every other team in the MLB, just like every other team in the MLB. Does that increase the importance of wins against teams that are not in your division, specifically in the AL East? Because if you're not playing them as much, you're not going to be taking games off them.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could look at it either way because it's less opportunities for you to take games off of teams and vice versa, right? So I don't know exactly how that calculation works out. And of course, it's our first year of seeing this rejiggered schedule. So we're not totally sure yet of maybe how these teams approach it. But I think if you asked anyone on the Blue Jays, they would give a really boring answer about how every game is important.
Probably.
So no need to do that. But I think as it stands, every AL East game, they still do all matter, the same amount. But I think with less of them, you have less opportunities to knock your opponents down. So I would say it probably does make them a little more valuable. It's just hard to quantify exactly how much.
Okay, Jordan, before we let you go, you got a few bets for us. I'm looking at your NorthStar Bets article at the moment. A parlay you have here that's interesting. Springer under 1.5 bases, Olsen 1+ hits. Why do you like that?
Yeah, so I think with Springer, I mean, we've talked about his struggles here, and Spencer Strider's on the mound tonight for the Braves, and he's pretty much exclusively a fastball slider guy to righties. And with Springer, he doesn't have to show him that fastball too often because the slider has a whiff rate over 50% and has been just so devastating. So I think he'll throw a lot of sliders to Springer, who again is struggling. I mean, in his past 20 games, he's gone hitless in 11 of them. So I think fading his 1.5 bases prop felt pretty good to me, but there's a little too much juice on that on its own. So I just tacked on 1 hit for Matt Olson. He knows Chris Bassitt from their time together in Oakland. He generally gets at least one hit a game, and his past 11 games, he's done that 9 times. So just throwing one hit on there for him, got us above plus money. So that one felt pretty good.
Yeah, the one I love here, man, Matt Chapman, to get a hit, over half a hit,
Oh
at
my
minus
gosh.
130. I'm sure that number is going to change, but why do you think it's still in and around even money?
Yeah, we could do a whole, as far as I'm concerned, we could do a whole segment on the psychology behind that price, because you've got a guy who's batting 338 this year. I don't understand seeing him that close to even money to just get one hit. Again, he's a big strikeout guy, and Spencer Strider throws a lot of strikeouts. So I understand we could be in for like a golden sombrero, platinum sombrero type game from Chapman. But at this price, I think you have to just go for it. I mean, within reason, doing this responsibly and all that, I think it's a really good value for a guy who is literally the American League batting leader right now. I don't get it. I really don't get it. So I love it. I love the price.
It's moved slightly to minus 132 as I'm speaking to you right now. That's definitely on the card for tonight. Jordan Horrobin, NorthStar Bets, thank you so much. Let's do it again soon.